A crown jewel disappears. Blood stains the floor. In the halls of power, silence falls and suspicion takes its place. A princess is named. A legacy is questioned. And behind closed doors, betrayal whispers louder than any public outcry. Kin turns on kin. Secrets traded for influence. All sacrificed for one prize: absolute power. But when the throne is built not on tradition, but on the ruins of truth itself, when the ones who swore loyalty begin to twist the blade, who truly deserves to survive in a kingdom where the bloodline is the battlefield and the crown is no longer a symbol, but a weapon? Tower of London, 6:58 p.m. November fog slithered along the Thames, coiling around ancient watchtowers and jagged stone walls like a medieval ghost. From a distance, the Tower of London glowed with golden light, a crown shining in the heart of a modern metropolis, majestic yet solitary. Princess Eugenie stood motionless in a back room, steps away from the Grand Hall. Her silver blue gown shimmered under the lights, rippling like a frozen lake. In her gloved hands, she cradled the massive sapphire encased in a secure glass box, the heart of Britannia, a treasure worth more than the throne itself. She breathed slowly, deliberately. She knew this moment would be recorded, dissected, judged as everything had been since the day she was born. A princess without a throne, without power, without the dazzling fame of her cousins, yet still carrying the Windsor bloodline. A single crease on her brow could spark tomorrow's tabloid frenzy. Her phone buzzed faintly in her pocket. A message. No sender, no subject. Just 3 words: get out, now. Eugenie froze. For a split second, her mind rejected every possibility. A prank, perhaps. A routine security alert. Or maybe, clank. The iron door behind her creaked shut, then locked. The mechanical thud echoed through the stone chamber. Outside, the band struck up Land of Hope and Glory. Footsteps marched in unison through the festive hall. Glasses clinked, laughter rang, cameras snapped relentlessly. Inside, Eugenie was trapped, and the jewel was about to vanish. 7:03 p.m. Before she could process what was happening, an explosion rocked the ground. Not a bomb's roar, but sharp enough to blast open a side door and shatter glass. Screams erupted, followed by chaos, panicked, shoving, blaring alarms. Chandeliers swayed violently, bulbs bursting, lights flickering like wartime flares. In the madness, Eugenie forced her way through the side door. Her knees bled from a fall, her left hand scraped raw, her right cheek smeared with ash, but her eyes burned with clarity. She pushed through the crowd toward the display podium. "No, it can't be," she muttered, her face taut with dread. "Please don't let it be true." But the reality was merciless. The glass case stood open, empty. No jewel, just a void, cold hollow, and hundreds of horrified eyes fixed on her. Her heart skipped and she collapsed into the smoky haze. 7:12 p.m. at Security Control Room. 6 agents in black suits crowded a windowless room filled with flickering screens and static noise. Cameras 12, 14, and 17 offline for exactly 3 minutes during the blast, their feeds reduced to static. The princess was the last to handle the jewel. A tall man with an MI5 badge said, his voice low and gravelly, and the only one who left the room when the system was tampered with. "We need to isolate her for now." A heavy silence fell. Eugenie didn't resist. She stared at the screen where footage showed her placing the jewel in its case moments before the cameras failed. No one saw her eyes then, not fearful, but resigned. She knew. No one would believe her. Not her family, not the public, not the press, not the government. But they would believe her if she uncovered the truth before it was twisted beyond recognition. 34 p.m. at Notting Hill apartment. Adam Voss, former MI6 operative, unlit cigarette in hand, glanced at his phone. No greeting, no sender, just one encrypted line only he and one other could decipher. "They're back. The jewel was just bait. They're after the crown." Tuanum. E. The dawn sky over Windsor Castle hung gray and heavy, like a funeral shroud draped across the monarchy. November winds whispered through ancient stone corridors, carrying the chill of unspoken truths. In a sealed meeting room on the top floor, where thick velvet curtains blocked the daylight and dark oak paneling absorbed sound, the air was thick with tension, like gunpowder waiting for a spark. The antique clock struck 8 as Prince William entered. His eyes were shadowed from a sleepless night, his dark suit unable to mask the anger smoldering beneath his calm exterior. Around the long wooden table sat familiar faces: the Prime Minister, the MI5 Director General, a Privy Council representative, and Camilla, Queen of England, temporarily steering the crown while King Charles recovered from heart surgery. No one mentioned Eugenie, but every glance drifted to the empty chair at William's right. "What do we know?" William asked, his voice low and steady. MI5 Director Broderick Haynes slid a thick dossier across the table stamped in silver. "Classified. Windsor Internal." Cameras went dark for 3 minutes. The west exit was remotely overridden, biometric locks disabled with internal equipment. Haynes paused, then added, "The only fingerprints on the case belong to Princess Eugenie." Camilla rubbed her temple. William sat still, but his hand tightened on the armrest. "She was set up," he said firmly. Haynes didn't reply. Instead, he glanced at another dossier as if prepared long in advance. "We've traced unusual encrypted communications from the princess's accounts over the past 3 weeks. Each one linked to a former MI6 contractor terminated in 2020, Adam Voss." The room grew colder, the air heavy as fog. William leaned forward. "And that man was saved by Eugenie from a kidnapping in Beijing. She had reason to trust and protect a loyal operative. Or to orchestrate a heist that could cripple the monarchy's credibility." Haynes replied, his tone flat, emotionless. "In a hidden archive beneath South Kensington, unlisted on any official map, flickering fluorescent lights reflected off a cold concrete floor. Eugenie and Adam stepped into a maze of steel cabinets, each drawer holding secrets history had rejected. Adam opened a rusted drawer. Inside was a faded dossier, its cover embossed. Scepter Black. Codename Prince E. Eugenie stared at the name, her blood running cold. "E," she whispered. Edward Adam nodded, lips tight. Her mind flashed back like an old reel, a blurry memory from Balmoral, 1997, the day of Princess Diana's funeral. As all eyes followed the coffin, Prince Edward, then in his 30s, stood behind a curtain, his gaze distant and cold. No one noticed, but Eugenie did. A man in a black cloak approached Edward, slipping him a note, whispering, "They chose the wrong heir for the throne. You can fix that." Back in the present, in the iron-scented vault, Eugenie sank into a creaking wooden chair. "He's my uncle. And the man who's been rebuilding Black Scepter for nearly 2 decades," Adam said, his voice heavier. "A half-religious, half-political group obsessed with symbolic acts to topple the system. He's rallied extremist MPs, disgraced nobles, and those cast out by the royals, all for one goal: restoring an absolute monarchy." Eugenie fell silent, then almost a whisper, "So I'm just a pawn?" Adam looked at her with pity. A battle-hardened soldier, he'd seen every crime, every death without shedding a tear. But before him stood a fragile princess, once sheltered and naive, like her peers now dragged into a war of titans, a stepping stone for someone else's throne. Adam spoke softly. "The king's too weak now. A power shift is inevitable. Edward will likely push Parliament for a Regency Council. We can't rely on Camilla." Eugenie looked up, her voice trembling with rising emotion. "What do we do? Is this how my life ends?" Adam placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Eugenie, stay calm. You've got me, and I believe we're not alone." Not far away, in an armored Range Rover gliding through London's evening traffic, Prince William sat in silence. Headlights carved pale streaks across his face. His encrypted phone buzzed once, displaying a screenshot of an MI6 file with a handwritten note. "If the prince truly believes in the throne, it's time to choose between blood and truth." William didn't respond. He stared out at London, a vast, indifferent machine humming along. But he knew the throne wasn't shaken by enemies outside. It was the blood within tightening its grip. In London's ancient heart, where subway lines crisscrossed medieval crypts, Westminster Abbey rose like a fortress of time, stoic, proud, and silent amid the chaos outside. Stone angels on its roof seemed to watch every step, while stained glass windows cast faint winter light like ripples of an ancient dream. Eugenie gazed up at the central dome above the altar. She'd visited here countless times as a child for grand ceremonies, royal funerals, or school trips to Westminster, but never with the suspicion that this place hid a plot to destroy the Windsor dynasty. She stood beside Adam, who'd just opened a side door to a narrow corridor off limits to the public, accessible only for government purposes. His small flashlight swept over oak bookshelves. The air smelled of old paper leather and beeswax, a scent of history itself. "You sure we'll find something here?" Eugenie asked softly. "Not certain, but a 1952 intelligence report mentioned a coded hymn used to pass secret orders between royal guardians and scepter. Last recorded here." He pulled a crumpled photocopy from his pocket. its text faded, but legible, bearing a Latin title, Domen corona tuae lucem redi. Lord, restore the light to your crown. They ventured deeper into the Forbidden Psalms room, a subterranean archive once used to store unapproved Bible manuscripts. The door, carved with a phoenix and scepter, creaked open with a special key from a retired bishop. Shakur, click. They stepped into a musty space where sacred hymns lay rolled in leather tubes organized by date. Eugenie paused at a low shelf marked 1673, the turbulent years after an assassination attempt on King Charles II. Here, Adam said, pulling out a crimson-edged scroll. Amid ancient Gregorian notes were odd symbols, letters that didn't belong in musical notation. Eugenie leaned in, eyes narrowing. Not a transcription error, it's a reverse Caesar cipher. Black Scepter used it shift each letter back 3 places in the Latin alphabet. They sat on the cold stone floor. In 15 tense minutes, they decoded the symbols. Eugenie read the revealed message aloud. In the crypt beneath the throne, where Edward's oath failed the heart of the kingdom, will rise when the crown bleeds again. Adam's brow furrowed. The crypt beneath the throne. Edward. That's Edward the Confessor. He's buried under the abbey right beneath the ancient Saxon coronation stone. And the heart of the kingdom? The jewel, Eugenie said slowly. Bleeds again, Adam whispered. This theft isn't the end. There's another strike coming, bloodier. A faint noise echoed behind them. They spun around. Someone had opened the door. Footsteps light but steady, like someone at home in the dark. Adam signaled to kill the light. He pulled Eugenie behind the shelves. They held their breath. Through a gap between hymn tubes, a flashlight beam swept the stone floor, followed by polished black dress shoes. A gloved hand reached for the 1673 shelf, finding the scroll they'd just opened. But the paper was gone. The figure paused, then spoke barely audible. I know you're here. Don't worry, I only need the original. Next time it'll be blood. Escaping through a southern side exit, Adam pulled Eugenie into a waiting taxi. She slumped back, gasping, sweat beating down her spine. Who was he? She asked, voice shaking. Adam didn't answer immediately. His eyes, sharp as blades, lingered on the rearview mirror, where the stranger's silhouette still burned in his memory. He's Edward's personal chaplain, former royal confessor, and likely the current keeper of Black Scepter's seal. Eugenie closed her eyes. The storm was just beginning, and a blood oath was about to be fulfilled in the cathedral. Sandringham House, 1 week after the theft. Cold winds swept through Norfolk's desolate fields, carrying the scent of damp earth and fallen apples. Amid the gray mist, Sandringham House loomed like a Victorian specter. No one lived here permanently anymore, but the estate had been quietly cleaned and secured that week. In a grand parlor with crimson rugs and a crackling fireplace, a man sat reading a newspaper, dressed in a gray cashmere sweater and corduroy trousers, a steaming cup of Darjeeling in hand. Prince Edward, the king's forgotten uncle, the one who always smiled at the right moment, and the deepest shadow in the royal family. The Guardian headline in his hands read, "The King's Silence. No end to the jewel heist saga." He folded the paper, eyes narrowing, not at the news but at its precision. Everything was unfolding as planned. Meanwhile, in a private office at Clarence House, William faced a choice no one wanted to bear. Before him lay an internal report, a copy of the decoded Westminster hymn, with a handwritten note from Adam Voss. If the jewel is the heart of the kingdom, Westminster is just the key. The final blow won't strike in a church, but where laws are written. William stared at a map marked in red, the Houses of Parliament. A coup he'd never dared imagine. And if Adam's intel was correct, led by his own uncle. At Sandringham, a hidden room behind the library opened via a secret panel in the bookshelves. Inside, 5 figures gathered, each a link in Black Scepter's covert chain. A former Anglican bishop, a far-right MP expelled from the Conservatives, a retired intelligence officer, and 2 others, no records, no names, no nationalities. Edward stood at the room's center, dim wall lights casting shadows across his face. No longer the obscure prince of public view, he was the leader of an underground revolution. Now is the time the public doubts the system, he said, voice steady. Now is when they crave a firm hand, not a frail crown. The ex-MP spoke, his voice dry as parchment. What about Eugenie? Edward looked up. She was always just a tool to steer the media. Once this is settled, there'll be no more Eugenie Victoria Helena. In a safe house near South Bank, Eugenie, and Adam listened to a recording from a hidden mic in Sandringham's library, sent via encrypted channel by a mole. Eugenie sat frozen, gripping the table's edge. He doesn't want the throne. He wants the entire government. Adam nodded. If his plan works, England will have its first true king since George III. Eugenie's eyes blazed. Then we won't let it happen. Adam turned surprised by her unshaken resolve. You're ready to face your own family and the press before the nation. Her face hardened. I'm not protecting blood. I'm protecting what that blood swore to uphold. It's time to bring William in. We strike before Edward does. Night fell over London, a fine drizzle weaving threads across the Thames. In an underground office of the Privy Council, a directive was printed in silence. Codename Ravenfall. Objective: halt the Regency ritual. Identify and neutralize Black Scepter operatives. Primary agent Princess Eugenie. As the sealed envelope was dispatched to Buckingham Palace via a secret tunnel, the shadow war for the throne began. Rain lashed London, a grey curse blanketing the city. At the Houses of Parliament, an emergency session convened. Official reason reviewed temporary changes to royal oversight during the king's recovery. But political insiders knew this was the first step in a bloodless coup. Prince Edward entered through the West Gate not in royal regalia, but a minimalist suit with a St. George's pin. Reporters swarmed the barrier's lenses trained on him, like a nation seeking not an heir, but a leader for turbulent times. Inside Parliament, factions formed. One group clung to royal tradition, the other, the covertly named New Order, had been quietly built by Edward over decades. They were cunning, ruthless, and unmarked. Before the session, Edward whispered to his media aide, "Today doesn't need a landslide victory. Just plant the seed of doubt." At a safe house near Wandsworth, Eugenie and Adam received a tip from William, who'd agreed to covertly assist after a private meeting with Eugenie 3 nights earlier. On a laptop screen, William's voice was firm. The Privy Council is compromised. If Edward succeeds, he'll push Camilla to approve a royal legislative regency within 48 hours. Do we have enough on Black Scepter? Eugenie asked. Yes, but the key evidence, the original coded hymn, was swapped. Adam shot to his feet. We've got a mole. William nodded. Not just a mole, a traitor. Dusk fell in a cold, misty rain. On an encrypted nameless system, a kill order activated. Sent to a mercenary team posing as special security consultants, it was brief, unsigned, marked only with a black symbol. Ravenfall, priority, eliminate permanently. Eugenie and Adam, unaware, left the safe house, silently hurrying through wet alleys to an abandoned dock on the Thames, a meeting point with an anonymous informant. Wind whipped their coats, carrying the stench of fuel and rust from decaying walls. As they reached the dock's edge, a black SUV with no plates roared from the slope, its speed defying human reflex. Adam turned. His eyes caught the vehicle barreling toward them. "Get down!" His shout was drowned by gunfire tearing through the air. Glass shattered. Bullets slammed into the ancient brick wall. Eugenie dove behind a corner, her head striking a rusted pipe. Blood streaked her face in the rain. Adam hit the ground, pulling a Glock from his coat, firing without hesitation. One shot pierced the SUV's front tire, veering it off course. Another hit the shooter's shoulder. As he leapt from the back, a figure in waterproof gear, face masked. The man staggered but raised his weapon, firing wildly, as if possessed. 3 rounds grazed the wall near Eugenie's head. Adam seized the moment, lunging from cover, firing 3 shots. 2 hit the chest, 1 pierced the armored collar. The man collapsed, blood spraying from his mouth, crawling toward the SUV. With his dying breath, he gasped an Old English oath long, "Live the scepter." His bloodied hand slammed a hidden switch on the dashboard. Adam saw a red flash from the circuitry, then the vehicle and body erupted in flames. Fire roared skyward, licking the stone walls, the smell of burning flesh, mixing with black smoke like a curse. Eugenie, still on the ground, opened her eyes, vision blurred by blood and rain. She stared at the inferno, her mind reeling. Back at the safe house, Adam ignored the pain in his wounded shoulder, locking eyes with Eugenie. "There's a traitor in William's circle," he said, voice like stone. "The hymn's code was leaked, and now even this safe house isn't secure." Eugenie gripped the chair. "If they get there first," Adam continued, "they can plant explosives, fake a curse, or swap the jewel. They'll control the narrative." On the table lay a black and white photo of the heart of Britannia, beside a map of Westminster's crypts, and a sealed order from 1671. Eugenie's decision was made. "We get there first." "No," Adam said. "It's a trap. They want you there." Good, Eugenie replied, her voice cold as frost. Because I want to face them. At Sandringham in a private study, Edward sipped aged cognac. An aide placed a brief report before him. Eugenie's alive. The operative was killed. Edward nodded, unruffled. No matter, he said, setting down the glass. Her resistance only makes our victory more legitimate. He rose fingers, tracing the fogged window. Outside, the garden lay dark, silent as a graveyard. She'll walk into the final gambit herself, he said without turning. And that will be the final price for blind loyalty to a toothless throne. The meeting room at Balmoral Castle glowed with the dim gold of 19th century chandeliers. Silence hung heavy as Eugenie entered. She wore no royal insignia. She didn't need to. Her presence, stripped of jewels, power, or pretense, forced everyone to confront the throne's weight. Edward crossed his arms, eyes steady. He wasn't surprised. He even smiled. I knew you'd come, he said, voice gliding like wind over ice. You always thought loyalty was a cloak to shield the crown, but it's a shroud the weak wear to die with honor. Eugenie placed a thick stack of documents on the table. I'm not here to protect the throne. I'm here to protect the truth you're twisting to legitimize your power. Edward didn't flinch. He stood pulling a signed proposal from his coat, 27 MPs and 8 financial leaders. Truth, he said, each word heavy as lead. The truth is, this system is rotting. The king can't lead. Parliament's divided. The media's a puppet. The only thing strong enough to keep England from chaos is a hand that doesn't tremble. And that's yours, Eugenie shot back. The hand that funneled royal funds to shell organizations, built a secret society, infiltrated MI5, manipulated MPs, and plotted to topple your own family. Edward's smile was faint. You don't understand. This isn't betrayal. It's cleansing. Because those with royal blood forgot the throne isn't held by press releases and Instagram posts. William stood. No one denies the system's flaws. But you don't get to fix it by erasing our legacy. Eugenie stepped forward. Here's the proof. She raised a recording device, plugging it into the projector. The Sandringham meeting. Every word. You didn't just talk about stabilizing the crown. You planned to restructure the government, even outlining martial law if the public resisted. Edward's voice echoed from the recording. If they reject the hand offered, we'll tighten it. Once the crown bleeds again, I'll raise the scepter, none dare question. Silence fell like a funeral veil. Camilla gasped. William glanced at Edward. But it was Edward's eyes that stilled the room. He stood tall, yet for the first time he had no words. He didn't respond. The light in his eyes was gone, replaced by the cold shadow of a man who'd believed in his cause until it consumed him. Hours later, William and Eugenie faced hundreds of cameras at Balmoral's gates. Not to expose Edward, nor to seek applause. They simply declared the truth. The coup was stopped not by power, but by quiet loyalty within the royal family. Amid the blinding flash of cameras, Eugenie stood still, her hands trembling faintly in black gloves. For a fleeting moment, her gaze drifted as if seeing the spare princess she once was. She'd come too far from the doubted royal. Now she was the one who'd saved the legacy and the one who'd have to leave it behind. That night in a sealed room, Edward was escorted by MI5 under a national security probe. No chains, no alarms, just the cold silence of human betrayal. Before stepping out, he turned to Eugenie, standing beside William. You're so like your mother, he said softly. Thinking truth can save everything. Eugenie met his gaze unwavering. Truth doesn't save everything, but lies destroy it all. 10 days after the Balmoral meeting, England woke to an eerie calm. The press dropped its frenzied headlines. Conspiracy theories faded. The public, after watching the saga unfold on live TV, fell silent, not from apathy, but from not knowing who to trust. Edward was detained in a Yorkshire security facility awaiting investigation. He offered no defense, no statements, no interviews. He never admitted ties to Black Scepter. Camilla, in a rare statement, expressed deep sorrow for the fractures within the royal family, but profound gratitude to those who preserved the institution's integrity. William earned the public's nickname, the Silent Anchor, for his understated resolve in crisis. But the one mentioned most was the one no longer tied to the throne. A week later, at Westminster Abbey, a small group gathered in the ancient crypt below the altar for the re-display of the Heart of Britannia. The jewel, recovered after weeks of security checks, was found in a hidden vault beneath Parliament, exactly as the code foretold. No one knew who returned it, but with the jewel was a handwritten note in antique brown ink. The crown isn't made by a jewel, It's made by the hand that refuses to trade justice to keep it. E. A month later, in a small cafe on the outskirts of Tuscany, Italy, a gray-haired man read an English newspaper. Across from him sat a young woman in sunglasses, her curly hair loose, dressed in a linen shirt and faded jeans. They spoke little, sipping coffee and gazing at the hills where the sunset sank slowly. "Do you miss England?" the man asked, voice steady. "Not England," she replied. "Just the feeling of believing the royal family was untouchable." Adam smiled. Eugenie removed her sunglasses. "But now I know," she continued, "nothing is untouchable. And sometimes losing faith is how you hold on to what matters most."